Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Let's begin this afternoon on line number 1. Let's go to Nova Scotia. Hello, Bruno Marcocchio. You're on the air.
Hi, Paddy. How are you today?
I'm fine, sir. How about you?
Good.
Grand.
I'd like to talk about Muskrat Falls. On your programs, you've had both Mr. Martin and this morning Kathy Dunderdale on talking about Muskrat Falls. And it seems like they're both playing from the same propaganda book. They believe that if they tell the big lie, they're more likely to get believed. I think we should all be cautious. Let me give you a couple of examples. Mr. Martin claimed no knowledge of the royalty trust agreements for the funding of the Lower Churchill project. There are press releases from the government of Newfoundland going back to 2005 that discuss the royalty trust. And as you and I have discussed before, government of Newfoundland has chosen to proceed with the royalty trust agreement and ignore the people that had money up front to pay for it.
They say they haven't, though. They say that they're not using the royalty trust agreement. And Martin, I asked him about that on the heels of it because it was brought up by another listener or two as well. And his words, and I actually re-listened to it, his words were that he has no knowledge of that royalty trust agreement, anything to do with the financing of Muskrat Falls. Was it 2005 or 2006, Bruno? I can't remember.
Well, I got a press release in front of me that's dated 2005.
Okay, 2005. And so it was brought in, it was debated, and then my understanding is it was rebuffed, and it is not part of the approach for the financing of Muskrat Falls.
Well, the government releases, as you and I have discussed before, contradict that, and this is scary in either case. Does the chief executive of Nalcor not have any knowledge of this agreement that goes back to 2005 on a royalty trust? And if he does know about it, why is he misleading the ratepayers in Newfoundland and Labrador that, A, he has no knowledge of it, and B, that's not the way they plan to proceed? As of now, it's the only financing option on the table. You and I both know that. Mr. Martin lied to us, but let's move on.
Well, it's too convenient to move on, though, Bruno. The government and Nalcor have said that they are not using the royalty trust agreement proposed in 2005 with Altius and, of course, other companies that Altius is either part owner of or owns directly. They are not considering that proposal for the financing of Muskrat Falls. You can call it a lie. I asked the follow-up question directly and was told no. So if they're lying to us, they'll be found out. But as of now, I have no choice but to believe what I'm told by Martin and the provincial government. Is that a problem?
I'd ask a higher authority in the government of Newfoundland. Clearly, there's only one financing option on the table. It's the royalty trust agreement. You bought the big lie. I haven't. But let's move on. Martin claimed that the Muskrat Falls finances work if zero power is sold abroad to Nova Scotia or to New England.
Yep.
Manitoba Hydro very plainly states that the financing of this thing assumes that all power will be sold, even though Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, according to MHI, will not take all of the power in the early years. It's not until, if the demand projections are accurate, and 30 years down the road, they may use all of that 40% of the power set aside for Newfoundland. Why do you think, Mr. Martin, and it had me scratching my head because I've heard him and others say the same thing, that the financing works even if zero power is sold. Manitoba Hydro says something very, very different. Does that concern you, that we were lied to by Mr. Martin telling us that even if no power is sold, the finances work, when clearly on the record that's not the case?
My concern on the markets is that I think it's certainly premature, and it is beyond the scope of what can be debated factually today as to what the market will bring to bear. I do know that the transmission agreements only include the tariff for wheeling the power, and we do not pay for the usage of the transmission lines until we are bringing it to the clearing market in New England. And at that point, if we don't achieve the $12 required for megawatt hour, then it won't be sold. I mean, that's all I know about that, Bruno. And the so-called lies that you're referring to, I just don't know. I don't think that these people are willfully looking everyone in the eye or through the radio waves or on the news and trying to willfully deceive people. I just don't buy that, Bruno. I don't. I really don't.
Well, Paddy, I'd recommend you read the MHI report.
I read the MHI report.
Where it clearly says, then you know that the finances assume that all power will be sold. That what you just said may or may not be true, but it's not the issue at hand. The financial projections assume all the power will be sold. You've just admitted that there are no firm sales, and Nalcor has...
Well, considering there won't be any power generated till 2017, of course, nobody buys spot power on the 5-year market, Bruno. You know that too, right?
You're avoiding the point.
What point? I'm not trying to avoid anything. Just let me clarify one thing, Bruno. As much as you've accused me of being a shill for anybody, I'm way too independent a thinker for that. For one,
no, I didn't call you a shill. I said you often run interference for the government.
Well, no, I actually run interference for my own opinion in things, and that's what makes these shows work, and why we continue to take your calls. The point is, I don't know what the markets are. I don't think anybody does. I don't think Nalcor does. I don't think the provincial government does. The MHI, the whatever the conflict or the lie, as you put it, that is pointed out, I'm happy to take a note on that and try and find out more as I can from anybody. I'm happy to do so.
Well, there again, there's a clear contradiction between what MHI says, that the financial projections assume all the power will be sold, and Martin claims that it works even if zero power outside of Newfoundland is sold. That's a contradiction. I call that a lie. You call it whatever you will, but the facts remain the facts.
I'm calling it a question, Bruno. I'm calling it a question that I'm happy to ask. How's that?
Either MHI lied or Mr. Martin lied. You can take your pick. I tend to believe MHI on this.
Well, I tend to take a position where if I have a question, I will ask it. If indeed it is in conflict or contradiction to what is documented statements by any group, I will then join you in calling it a lie. Until then, I'll have to ask the question for my own opinion and my own information.
All right. Well, please review the MHI, and we can pick it up again after you've had a chance to do that.
Next point. Go ahead.
Now, the third big lie that Mr. Martin told. The interconnection, he says that after we have an interconnected option, that is, that Muskrat Fall is built, that there will be more capacity for wind on the system.
Yeah.
That's technically true,
yes,
but factually a lie.
Why?
Because the projections for the demand for power that they have put forward to justify Muskrat Falls assumes that after 2028, when the Nalcor says the commercial life of the windmills now in operation or on the drawing board are finished, that there will be no need for wind in Newfoundland and Labrador because Muskrat Falls Power will provide it. So he suggests that there would be more capacity, which is the truth. But the truth, but the lie is that they have no intentions of using any wind in Newfoundland and Labrador after 2028, according to their projections. Does that lie trouble you?
I'm not even sure where the... Give me a really a tight sentence as to where the lie is, though, Bruno. You're saying that there is no need for wind power generation after 2028 based on what Martin said?
Martin said there will be no wind generation because there will be no need for it because Muskrat Falls Power will provide the power at a lower cost than the wind generation.
Right.
So as far as Nalcor is concerned, they're going to off all the windmills in Newfoundland and Labrador by 2028, and there will be no new wind capacity.
Well, for power consumption...
That's outrageous on its face, considering how the world is going.
Does that not mean that you could just transmit that power across a subsea cable and sell it anywhere? Like, who cares if it's generated by wind or methane or solar power or tidal power, like whatever? Of
course, but you're ignoring the fact that there is no market for that other 60% of the power. And
Bruno, so you don't know that, though. You don't know that. You have no earthly idea what the market is for the power in 2017.
Yes, I do.
I don't. You don't. Nobody does.
I do. I know that right now it's worth 5 to 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour delivered to New England. I know that the price of shale gas continues to drop and that the supply of shale gas continues to increase, which is going to continue to drive down or keep the price of electrical power at no higher than 5 cents a kilowatt going into the future.
Bruno,
if you add up the cost of what the line losses will be for going into the DC system and out again twice, and the wheeling fees that you have to pay to get the power from here to New England, you're going to find that the value delivered in New England is worth no more than the expense of getting it there, which means no return for that 40% of the power, Paddy. Zero return. That's clear now. And that's the other big lie.
Bruno, but it's only clear if you accept your own personal opinion or those who are like-minded. There are other people, Bruno, who think that we cannot predict the 2017 market for in a clearing spot market for power.
Well,
I think that's realistic. That's a legit assertion.
I challenge you, Paddy, to have a creditable energy analyst come on your program and tell the ratepayers in Labrador and Newfoundland that there's any likelihood that the price of electrical energy is going to be any more than 5 cents a kilowatt in 15 years.
Well,
you're missing the reality of the change in energy composition and production in North America.
I would suggest I know a fair bit about it, Bruno, and as you told your buddy Tom Adams that this dingbat VOCM, you give him a call because I called into question some of his past work. Mr. Adams called me. We actually had a genuine conversation. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't lump me into the dummies in the Muskrat Fall conversation. One question for you, Bruno. People say, do we need the power? And your answer?
My answer is we don't need the power because it can be met more cost effectively in other ways. And I wanted to
No. Do we need the power? Do we need the power?
Yeah, Kathy Dunderdale made that claim this morning that we need the power and that the lights are going to go out if we don't have Muskrat Falls. Let's assume for a moment that all the demand projections are correct, which I believe they're not, because you've had a deindustrialization and they've overestimated the increase in supply. But
you refer to Manitoba Hydro International and their opinion on things, but you choose to not accept their opinion on the need for power. So you pick and choose to suit your own argument. Is that what you're saying?
Well, let's accept it for now. That there will be a market for 40% of the power generated by Muskrat Falls in Labrador and Newfoundland.
Okay.
The other 60% of the power, no one wants to talk about. You're giving 20% of it away to Nova Scotia.
For $2 billion.
Well, yeah, for constructing the link for 35 years.
Right.
And the other 40% will have a market value of no more than 5 cents delivered, which is more than what it will cost to get it there.
I find it's a convenient rebuff.
Demand for the power, the question has to be, why are we building capacity 2.5 times what the Premier says we need, putting the ratepayers at risk? Why are we doing that?
Manitoba Hydro, who you choose to quote sometimes, says that we are not even recognizing or giving a proper forecast for power. They say we'll need more than Nalcor says.
No, they're not. They're saying
that's what they said.
Actually, what they said was that they haven't updated their demand projections and that's a problem for them. Why do you think they haven't updated their demand projections?
I don't know. You tell me, Bruno.
Because it's going to show that they don't need as much power as they projected. Why did Manitoba Hydro point that out to them?
Okay.
We must have read different MHI reports, Paddy.
No, but Bruno, listen. Just, we all know. Two quick questions. You wouldn't answer my power thing. That was a real tiptoe around variety thing, but that's fine.
Around it.
You did. And
I didn't. You said 40% of the power. What are you going to do with the other 60%?
Isn't that one of the things you do in hydro, right? You either let it run over the dam or you generate power, you send it through some transmission line and try and sell it. Isn't that how it goes?
No.
Isn't that what power generation is done in this world?
Nalcor thinks it's the end of the world if the water runs over the dam. They think that's a lost economic opportunity.
And so why isn't that true? Why wouldn't you try and generate power from it and try and sell it? I don't get it.
You're going to lose money, Paddy. That's why.
You just said yourself that the cost of getting it to the market would be all you could sell it for, so that's not a loss in my mind. If it costs $10, you get $10, you didn't lose anything. Isn't that true?
It cost you $10 to get there.
Yeah, and if you sell it for 10, so you lost money?
You got nothing for you.
Bruno.
Do you understand that?
Nothing for me?
Yeah.
What do you mean for me?
It cost you $12.
They project they're going to make between $200 and $400 million a year on the sale of power.
No, listen. It costs you 5 cents a kilowatt to deliver it to New England by the time you sustain line losses and you pay the wheeling fees. It's only worth 5 cents. What about the 12 cents that it costs you to get it delivered wholesale to Soldier's Pond? No, none of that money's been paid by that 60%, Paddy. Your math isn't very good.
Bruno, I would suggest my math is excellent.
Well, then you're going to have to explain that to me and to everybody listening.
No problem there. I think I actually have a fair amount of credibility here in this province, Bruno. What is your standing and your stake in this particular argument anyway? Why? Why are you involved?
What is my standing?
Yeah, why are you involved?
I'm involved because I was involved in the Lower Churchill panel review process What I saw when I examined the evidence horrified me. Not only is it going to be destructive environmentally, it's completely unnecessary, and worst of all, the ratepayers in Labrador and Newfoundland are getting hosed, and somebody has to stand up and address the elephant in the room.
It's your moral obligation.
That's right. I hold a high moral ground, Paddy.
Bruno.
What about you? What about you?
What, do I hold a high moral ground?
Yeah.
Are you friggin' joking, man?
No.
You don't know me. You don't know me. I got lots of credibility in the high moral ground here. I know lots about you.
How can you be... Oh, do you? What do you know about me?
Anyway, Bruno, listen, I always enjoy the chat, man. I'm late going to the break. You're always welcome to call. I do think that it does reek of witch hunt, right? If the suggestion is at the end of the day that there are people that are willfully trying to mislead the province, to commit an act of treason, to develop something that does not deserve development, and we should not be doing it, then that's its own thing. That will, I don't know who can prove or disprove that, right? I don't. But if this is about a legitimate business deal, accurate forecast by a company like Nalcor, the need for power satisfied in the province, then that's its own conversation. But the witch hunt one, no one can disprove anything that anyone says because it's all just allegations, I think.
Let me finish with one comment.
Go ahead.
Brendan Sullivan, as you know, who's a former provincial economist.
Yep.
Calls Muskrat Falls voodoo economics. We have given, according to MHI, over $900 million already in untendered contracts to SNC-Lavalin, and I think that the money's allocated another $500 or $600 million in your provincial budget is added to that. So
that's actually earmarked for a variety of things. That's something that you don't know, I guess. The money from Nalcor is earmarked for a variety of things. They do 5 lines of business at Nalcor.
All right, let's just talk about the 920 or so
but Bruno,
billion that's already been allocated.
I only have to get in on this, Bruno, because I go to break at 2:30. It's 2:39. I'm getting swung off there by my producers.
One last.
If you can do it quick, and then I'll just cut you off.
Given that that Lavalin has institutionalized corporate malfeasance. It seems to go right to the top. There were more examples of it this week. Doesn't it seem rather odd to you that you've given them over $900 million in untendered contracts with no public scrutiny, exemption from freedom of information, no information to the review panel, no financial information to the PUB? Isn't it time for a public inquiry into the relationship between the Newfoundland government and SNC-Lavalin, given their corporate malfeasance, Paddy?
Listen, if they are trying to smuggle a Gaddafi into Labrador, I'm with you.
No, that's not the issue. The issue is the bribes that they pay as part of the usual way of doing business.
Yeah.
Aren't you worried, Paddy?
It's funny how you have this tone with me, but when you get on with Randy or Peter or anyone else, it's just like eating ice cream, right?
I know. I'm a sweet fella to sweet fellas.
Oh, well, I don't pretend to be sweet, and I don't know. Who cares, man? Yeah, no, I know you're not a sweetheart, Bruno.
I'm going into the corners. Gordie Howe was my hero. You know, young fellas, when they went, you'd usually go into the corner with Gordie once because they come out with their tooth loosened.
Yeah, well,
the next time
considering, well, then just very quickly, elbows up, sticks up, knees up for me, man. I got to go to the break, Bruno. Call again, though. I always enjoy the conversation.
I do too. Thanks,
man. Bye-bye.